Today, let us discuss on the topic radio, meaning, purposes, advantages, and limitations. Introduction. In 1864, James Clerk Maxwell saw mathematically that electromagnetic waves could propagate through free space. The effects of electromagnetic waves, then unexplained, action at a distance, sparkling behavior, were actually observed before and after Maxwell's work by many inventors and experimenters, including Luigi Galvani, 1791, Peter Samuel Munk, 1835, Joseph Henry, 1842, Samuel Alfred Varey, 1852, Edwin Houston, Elihu Thomson, Thomas Edison, 1875, and David Edward Hughes, 1878. Edison gave the effect the name etheric force, and Hughes detected a spark impulse up to 500 yards, 460 meters, with a portable receiver. But none could identify what caused the phenomenon, and it was usually written off as electromagnetic induction. In 1886, Heinrich Rudolf Hertz noticed the same sparking phenomenon, and in published experiments 1887 to 1888 was able to demonstrate the existence of electromagnetic waves in an experiment, confirming Maxwell's theory of electromagnetism. The discovery of these Hertzian waves, radio waves, prompted many experiments by physicists. In August 1894, lecture by British physicist Oliver Lodge, where he transmitted and received Hertzian waves at distances up to 50 meters, was followed up a year later with experiments by Indian physicist Jagdish Bose in radio microwave optics and construction of radio-based lightning detector by Russian physicist Alexander Stevanovich Popov. Starting in late 1894, Guglielmo Marconi began pursuing the idea of building a wireless telegraphy systems based on Hertzian waves radio. Marconi gained a patent on the system in 1896 and developed it into a commercial communication system over the next few years. Early 20th century radio systems transmitted messages by continuous wave quote only. Early attempts at developing a system of aptitude modulation for voice and music were demonstrated in 1900 and 1906, but had little success. World War I accelerated the development of radio for military communications, and in this era, the first vacuum tubes were applied to radio transmitters and receivers. Electronic amplification was a key development in changing radio from an experimental practice by experts into a home appliance. After the war, commercial radio broadcasting began in 1920s and became an important mass medium for entertainment and news. World War II again accelerated development of radio for the wartime purpose of aircraft and land communication, radio navigation and radar. After the war, the experiments in television that had been interrupted were resumed, and it also became an important home entertainment medium. Uses of radio. Early uses were maritime, for sending telegraphic messages using Morse code between ships and land. The earliest user included the Japanese Navy scouting the Russian fleet during the Battle of Tsushima in 1905. One of the most memorable uses of marine telegraphy was during the sinking of RMS Titanic in 1912, including communications between operators on the sinking ship and nearby vessels, and communication to shore stations listing the survivors. Radio was used to pass on orders and communications between armies and navies on both sides in World War I. Germany used radio communications for diplomatic messages once it discovered that its submarine cables had been tapped by the British. The United States passed on President Woodrow Wilson's 14th points to Germany via radio during the war. Broadcasting began from San Jose, California in 1909 and became feasible in the 1920s. With the widespread introduction of radio receivers, particularly in Europe and United States, besides broadcasting, point-to-point broadcasting, including telephone messages and relays of radio programs, became widespread in 1920s and 1930s. Another use of radio in pre-war years was the development of detection and locating of aircraft and ships by the use of radar, radio detection and ranging. Today, radio takes many forms, including wireless networks and mobile communications of all types, as well as radio broadcasting. Before the advent of television, commercial radio broadcast included not only news and music, but dramas, comedies, variety shows, and many other forms of entertainment. The era from the late 1920s to the mid-1950s is commonly called radio's golden age. Radio was unique among methods of dramatic presentation in that it used only sound. Meaning, the term radio is derived from the Latin words radius, meaning spoke of a wheel, beam of light ray. It was the first applied to communication in 1881, when at the suggestion of French scientist Ernest Macquer, Alexander Graham Bell adopted radiophone, meaning radiated sound, as an alternate name for his photophone optical transmission system. However, this invention would not be widely adopted. Radio is an audio-electronic medium of mass communication, broadcasting programs with the purpose to inform, educate, and entertain audience. This medium is cosmopolite in approach and is suitable for communication to millions of people widely dispersed in remote areas. Availability of low-cost transistor set has helped radio to penetrate deep into the real life. A radio is suitable for creating general awareness amongst the people, help change their attitude and reinforce learning. Radio broadcast can stimulate farmers' curiosity. It can arouse and build interest of farmers. It creates a desire to learn and encourages for the better doing the things. The medium is extremely convenient for communication in times of crisis and urgent situations. Radio is considered to be the best and most effective means of communication for rural audience in our country. The radio voice appears to the listener as authentic and real. Therefore, radio has a good place in communication. One can use radio to inform, to alert, suggest, direct, interest, stimulate, and motivate the people. It is effective when you supplement it with other media or methods. But the radio has some limitations which one should understand while using it. The radio cannot teach, specify, and go into details. One cannot use of his smile or frown. One cannot gesticulate or use visuals. At present, broadcasting network in India covers about 93% of population spread over 82% of geographic areas. Purposes of radio. Number 1, to reach a large number of people at a time. Number 2, to provide information quickly in emergencies like epidemic of diseases and pest on the crops. Number 3, to alert people in advance. to face natural calamities such as flood, earthquake, etc. Number 4, to provide thinking in audience about current problems. Number 5, to build enthusiasm and maintain interest. Number 6, to reach people not reached by other methods, to reach the unreached. Number 7, to stimulate participation in extension programs. Community radio station, CRS. Community radio is defined as radio that is owned by the community and airs programs designed and produced by it specifically for its own developmental needs. It is a significant departure from the primary centralized radio broadcasting paradigm that India has been following for decades. It can be supported by the state, individuals or corporate or even international bodies. A radio station is recognized as community radio when the station is owned by a non-profit group or by a cooperative whose members are the listeners themselves. A community radio station is one that is operated in the community, for the community, about the community, and by the community. It can be managed and controlled by one group or combination of groups of people such as women, children, farmers, fisherfolk, ethnic groups, or senior citizens. There is high level of people's participation both in management and program production. Individual community members and local institutions are the principal sources of support. Community radio is a broadcasting organization established to provide communication support for the social, economic, and cultural development of a community within a geographical location and owned and operated by the community on a non-profit basis. Community radio is characterized by access, public participation in production and decision making, and by a non-profit listener-friendly economics. The management of a station is in hands of those who use and listen to it. The working of such stations are not easy, but the structure allows the audience of users to participate in the whole operations. Community radio by itself may not be an aim or only an independent means for achieving social development, but it must be coordinated with ground-level initiative and has to be perceived as an additional arm for social communication and capacity building programs. It should be seen as a part of broader struggle for access to communication media, a struggle not only for freedom of communication, but particularly for the right to communicate, which had gained support in the past 25 years. Community radio is variously known in various countries. It is called popular or educational radio in Latin America, rural or local radio in Africa, public radio in Australia, and free or associative radio in Europe. All this describe the same phenomenon, that is, give a voice to those without voices, to marginalized groups and to rural communities. Community radio station in India. In December 2002, the Government of India approved a policy for the grant of licenses for setting up of CRS to well-established educational institutions including IITs, IIMs. The matter has been reconsidered and the government has now decided to broad-base the policy by bringing non-profit organizations like civil society and voluntary organization, etc., under its ambit in order to allow greater participation by the civil society on issues relating to development and social change. Though the national program of AIR was in Hindi and English, which the policy famous eventually realized may not have been understood by a great number of people across the country, given the number of languages that are spoken. This led to the creation providing utility service to a small area. The first CRS came in Nagarkoli, Tamil Nadu, a model that was replicated in various parts of the country, particularly in small towns and rural areas. Key players or actors in community radio. The key players in a community radio projects that involves broadcasting are: number 1, community members. This is the audience and the people who are central to the project. Number 2, providers of technology. These people provide the equipments that the project will need. Train members of the community on how to use and maintain the equipment. Number 3, government. There are 2 levels in the government that need to be kept in focus. Number 1, the department which will grant permission for the program either through AIR channels or through ownership of radio transmitter, and number 2, the local administrative authorities. Number 4, producer and staff. These are the people who know the craft of program production and will help the community to generate ideas and create programs. They will also help with inputs from outside sources that will aid to the general information pool essential to sustain radio programs. Number 5, resource mobilizers. These are the people who provide the finance to support the initiative. This could be the state, corporate house, or NGO, but the ultimate sustainability must come from the community. These groups are the stakeholders. They are called stakeholders because each stakeholder has some interest in running the program and stake in the project. They are all partners in the project and share the responsibility of making it successful. Unless the participant, the listener, and the broadcaster are all stakeholders in a community radio program, it is difficult to sustain the program. There is a growing acceptance of the community radio in the country. However, this service needs continuous backup from institutions till it reaches sustainability. Therefore, role of stakeholders in running the service at initial stage is most essential. This initiative will definitely pave the way for the participatory development process and thereby harnessing the potentials of agricultural technologies for livelihood security at the grassroots levels. Advantages of radio. Number 1, can reach people more quickly than any other means of communications except television. Number 2, especially suited to give emergency and timely information, for example, weather, pest outbreak, etc. Number 3, relatively cheaper at remote places. Number 4, relatively cheaper medium. Number 5, reaches people who are unable to attend extension meetings. Number 6, build interest in others' extension media. Number 7, possible to do other things while listening. Number 8, specially suited to illiterate mass of people. Number 9, useful event at load shedding time of electricity. Procedures of radio. Number 1, determine its place in the teaching plan. Number 2, be clear about the purposes of your broadcast. Number 3, keep the interest and need of the audience in view. Number 4, select topics of current interest. Number 5, time of the broadcast to be adjusted with the farmer's leisure hours. Number 6, decide what treatment to give: straight talk, interview, drama dialogue, folk songs, etc. Number 7, encourage people to listen to the real program. Number 8, encourage them to write to the broadcasting station about their likes, needs, and opinions. Number 9, encourage talented local people to participate in broadcasting. Number 10, collect all the possible related material helpful for writing. Number 11, select authentic material and arrange it in order. Number 12, be sure to include supporting and illustrative facts. Number 13, speak in local language. Number 14, the message has to be simple and clear so that the people can understand it and act. Number 15, support your information with local examples. Number 16, get and hold attention of audience, otherwise the message is lost. Limitations of radio. Number 1, limited number of broadcasting stations. Number 2, recommendation may not apply to individual needs. Number 3, no turning back if not understood. Number 4, many people cannot adjust with pace of delivery. Number 5, people tend to use it for entertainment rather than education. Number 6, difficult to get feedback and evaluate impact. Conclusions. From the above discussion, we can conclude that radio is one of the important audio-electronic medium of mass communication, broadcasting programs with the purpose to inform, educate, and entertain audience. It creates a desire to learn and encourages for better doing the things. The medium is extremely convenient for communication in times of crisis and urgent situation. It is relatively cheaper medium which provides information quickly in emergencies like epidemic of disease and pest on crops, and especially suited to illiterate mass of people.